Well, hello everybody. So today what I'm going to be doing is showing you the complete teardown on a Nissan 240SX suspension. Now I am going to be starting off with the front here, and I'm going to be going over all the parts you're going to need in order to strip this down to a bare wheel well. Okay. From there, later on, I am going to be showing you a video on the entire assembly with all the different upgrades that I'm going to be going over with this vehicle. Jumping into the tools that we're going to need today, these are all the tools that you're going to need to take apart the entire front suspension on your vehicle. Now, number one, you're going to need some stuff to get your vehicle's lug nuts off. I have tuner lugs, so I'm using this adapter, which requires either a 19 or 21 mil socket to get off. From there, we're going to be jumping in and taking the spindle off, which requires a 30 mil socket to get that off. The next piece of the puzzle I like to deal with is the outer tie rod end. The outer tie rod end requires a 19 mil socket to get off. As well with that and the spindle, you are going to need to get a cotter pin out. So I like to keep needle nose pliers and my flathead screwdriver, as well as my mini sledge to get those out as needed. From there, the next thing I like to deal with is a ball joint, okay? The ball joint is a 22 mil socket, and as well, you are going to need, most likely, a ball joint separator. There are other ways to get this off. This has by far been the easiest and most efficient way to get a ball joint separated, in my opinion. For this nut right here on the end, you are going to need a 24 mil socket, in my particular case for my tool. From there, we are going to be dealing with the upper strut components. We are going to need 17 mil wrench and a 17 mil socket in order to be able to take out the bottom two bolts for the strut, in which case I will be upgrading to a coilover in the future. As well, for the top three bolts, you are going to need a 14 mil socket in order to get those off. From there, we're going to be taking off the caliper. Okay, for the caliper bracket bolts, you are going to need a 19 mil socket to get those off. As well, if you're taking out the guide pins, you'll need a 14 mil socket. The last piece right here for the brakes is, if you need to get the brake lines off as you'll be upgrading, you will need a 10 mil open-end wrench. I really like these open-end flare nut wrenches as they prevent stripping for the nuts. From here, we're going to be jumping into the inner tie rod end. For the inner tie rod end, you are going to need a 25 mil open-ended wrench. Now, I really like this adjustable one because it maxes out at 25, so it gets on nice and snug and prevents any stripping whatsoever. From here, we are also going to be taking apart the tension arm and the control arm. For the tension arm, we are going to need 17 mil, both wrench, and we're going to need a socket in order to get the front bolt, and then we're just going to need the socket for the other two bolts underneath. And the last piece, which is the control arm, we are going to also need these 17 mils in order to be getting out the inner bolt for the lower control arm. So, those are all the tools that you're going to be needing in order to take apart the entire front suspension. Let's jump right into it. So, to start off, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking off the lug nuts. So, I'm going to be getting my tuner lugs right off with this socket. Once you have those lugs off, there, you can pop off your wheel and push that off to the side. So the next piece that we're going to be doing is taking off the center cap in order to gain access to the spindle. To do that, what you're just going to do is put a flathead screwdriver just in here, and all you're going to do is lightly tap till you get it in part way. From there, all you're going to do, twist. Okay? Now, you're going to need to do this probably a couple times, and as well spin the wheel as you go. Tap, and then from there, twist, and you can hear that pop right there. Spin, and now make sure you go in where you've already managed to pry it up. Tap, twist, and last piece, twist. And from there, center cap is out. Next piece from here is to be getting out this cotter pin. So just get some needle nose pliers, try and pry on there. In my case, I can't get access, so a little tap with the screwdriver, expose that. Now, as you can see, because this cotter pin is protected, it has no rust on it whatsoever, which is very nice and bodes well for getting that spindle out later. One trick I really like to do, stick the edge of the needle nose in, just tap it up. From there, you got your cotter pin out. If you're unable to now get this spindle off, all you need to do is put your now wheel back on, drop the vehicle down, break the torque on that, and then get the vehicle back up and continue on. Okay, in this case I'm going to be using my impact, so it's going to be a lot easier for me and a lot faster. Next part that we're going to be doing, taking the spindle off. So we get that 30 mil on, came off like butter. Okay, so they're placing that off to the side. From here, we're going to be taking off the brake caliper bracket next, okay? Now, you may have your brake line secured. In this case, the previous owner did not secure it. However, if need be, you just need to tap out a piece of metal right here, okay? Unfortunately, I don't have that, so I'm going to be taking this out right away. If you are doing a brake upgrade in the future, make sure you note the position of the line right now, okay? It is going around the back of the strut on the front part, okay? And then hooking back up, okay? So, from here, we're now going to be taking it off. So, you're going to need your 19 mil socket. You're going to be finding the bolt. And from here, you're going to be knocking it loose. From there, top one's cracked. Can we jump down to the bottom one? Okay. One thing I really enjoy is these adjustable 3/8 ratchets, extendable. Makes it easy to turn them into. Breaker bar in order to speed jobs along. If you were looking at cracking the torque on your front caliper bolts, I'd recommend doing it now while it's still on the vehicle. Okay? If you're doing that, you'd grab your 14 mil, put it on there, break the torque. There's one. There's two. Okay? Simple little thing to do right now. In the future, it may make your life a little bit easier if they're more seized on than what mine were. There's one. Make sure you don't lose that lock washer. There's two. From here, you can take off your caliper. If you're having any issues, simply grab a flathead screwdriver, stick it in the one end, and then from there, pull it out. Caliper's loose. Okay? From here, make sure you put this somewhere secure where it's not going to be hanging by the brake line. In this case, I have a wheel underneath the vehicle that I'm going to be throwing this on. So I'm going to pass it through behind the strut. Placing it down on that wheel underneath the vehicle. Next piece that we're going to be removing is the rotor. Now, if you're like me and you live in Canada, this can sometimes be seized right on, okay? So, one thing you can do simply, tap it on the sides. I already felt it go. And from here, you can get your rotor off. Now, if you have what's happening with me right now, I'm already having this wheel bearing slip off, which is perfect because I already got that spindle. If you're having troubles getting the rotor off, simply stick that nut back on earlier from the spindle, and then from there it won't be able to pull out as easily. One thing I like to do with my brake caliper bracket bolts, as well as most of my other bolts that I'm going to be doing throughout this job, I like to put them back in their threads. So then from there I know exactly where they are, where they came from. I don't end up losing them. So, simple little bit of advice that can save you in the long run, especially when you're doing a full disassembly on both the front and rear suspension all in one go. Next piece of puzzle that we're going to be removing is the front wheel bearing here. Now, if you're having troubles getting them off, simply taking a mini sledge and tapping it can sometimes loosen it. Majority of the times, if they have that sealed piece on the outside, they're going to be really easy to come off. So, cup your hand on the end, slide, pops right out. One thing to note is there is this washer inside. Make sure you do not lose it when you're taking this off. Again, one thing I like to do, put that back on there, grab your spindle, slide it on. You're now no longer going to lose it. Next piece that I'm going to be dealing with right here is going to be this outer tie rod end. Now, this right here, this cotter pin has seen better days as well as this spindle. So, I'm going to be doing my best to get this off as cleanly as possible. Now, one thing is, I'm right now having a hard time getting the back end of this tie rod through. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be grabbing one of the long ends, and all I'm going to do with it is I'm going to move it back and forth. Just by simply moving it back and forth, it'll eventually break. Fortunately, it broke a little bit higher. Grab a little bit closer. And there it goes. So now I have half the amount in order to pull through. Pulls right out. Next piece right here is going to be getting this off. This one right here is a 19 mil. They can be torqued on there pretty tight. So this extendable ratchet. Gotta watch. They can be on there pretty tight. Now, if you're lucky like I am right now, where it's coming off pretty easy, you're in luck. If not, like I had on the other side, you may have the tie rod free spinning. If it's free spinning, simply get a jack, put it up underneath here, and just simply apply enough pressure so you see this front knuckle move. As soon as you do that, all the weight's right there. This will no longer free spin, and then from there it's much easier to get off. Now the next piece is to get this outer tie rod end out. Now, one thing that you can do is take your casting up, put it reverse. So now from there, the castle part is actually facing down. Screw that back on, and then hit it. I am not going to be doing that today. Okay, the other option that people may do is they may hit the outside of this. Again, you can do that as well. If you're saving the outer tie rod end, I would recommend one of those two ways. For myself, I'm actually not going to be saving it. So what I'm going to be using is actually my ball joint separator to get this off. Now, they do make tie rod and separators as well. Unfortunately for me, I found that it couldn't hold and it kept slipping off with this one. So I'm getting on my ball joint separator. And from here, I'm going to be getting the ball joint separator on. So I'm going to put these two hooks on the bottom, stick it on. As you can see right now, by doing this, I am going to be tearing the boot. That's why if you're saving the outer tie rod ends, I don't recommend doing it this way. From there, tap it on. Tighten this down by hand. And from here, you'll be grabbing your 24mm socket. I recommend using a ratchet when doing this. Although some people may prefer to use impact, I like to preserve the life of my tools. If at this point you're worried about something bad happening, I do recommend you put on safety glasses, as this will sound like a gunshot when it does finally go. Done. That one was off a lot faster than the other side. The other side I was cranking away for a while. So, sometimes this simple tool can work in more places than one. So, from here, we pull out the outer tie rod end, and that's now out of the way. Normally from here, I would like to jump to the ball joint if I can. However, already looking right now, the strut is going to be getting in the way. So I am going to be dealing with the strut first and foremost. Now, in order to get the strut off, there are going to be two 17mm here, okay? And there are going to be as well 3 14mm here up top. So, one thing I like to do is I like to leave the top on first, deal with the bottom, and then from there I know that it is supported up top, and then from there I can remove these whenever I'm comfortable. So from here, we're going to be getting off the lower bolts for the strut. Now, one thing I recommend, there is quite a bit of thread showing here. Just simply take a wire brush, give it a few passes, and it'll definitely help you after you've gotten the torque broken. From here, you're going to stick our 17mm on. And 17mm box end on the other side. Extend, get that torque. And from there, I'm having a lot of issues getting this loose. So, one thing that I'm gonna have to resort to is using my impact. If you're in this situation you don't have impact, I just recommend getting a longer breaker bar. In this case, I do have impact available, so I'm gonna make use of it. Done, and it's off. From there, we can move on to the next one. I like to leave the bolts in while I do this. And there's two. Now from here, this is when I like to take the bolts out. Typically the bottom one first. And then from there, the top one's usually a little bit easier to get out. Okay, and there's both two bolts for the bottom part of the strut. Now from here, this can pull out nice and easy. From here, the next part is giving off these 3 14mm. Extend, cracked. There's one. There's two. So I've taken off two. What I'm now going to do is the third one is the torque broken. I'm going to be ratcheting, but as I ratchet it, I'm going to take my other hand, I'm going to reach underneath, and I'm going to support the strut. And now I'm supporting it so that way it doesn't fall. Make sure you don't lose your nuts. One thing I like to do now is put those nuts, as well as the two bolts underneath, back on this strut. From here, get the strut out, simply support it on the bottom, angle it, and bring it out. That's why it's helpful when that outer tie rod end's already off. It's not getting in the way of bringing this out. Next piece of the puzzle to deal with is going to be this ball joint right here. Again, there is going to be a cotter pin. So, grab your needle nose. And then from there they snap. There's one. Because I'm having so much difficulty, I am going to be breaking both of them. There's two. From here we can work on getting this other end out. Try and feed your needle nose in. pull and it's out. Next piece of the puzzle is going to be to get this ball joint nut off. So 22 mil, going to be going on there. Normally I would try this with a breaker bar. For simplicity's sakes today, I'm going to be using my impact yet again. So fit your impact on and go away. That's off. From here, we're going to need to get this ball joint off. You can try and pull it. Chances are it's probably not going to go. You can try hitting it. Again, I'm going to be falling back onto my ball joint separator. For my ball joint separator, I couldn't get it on the back side, so I had to get it on the front side. It's on there now. Again, hand tighten. In my case, I'm going to be grabbing my 24 mil socket. Put the 24 mil on the end. And again, we're going to be tightening this down. It's off. Slide your ball joint separator off. And remove your front knuckle. Next piece that I'm going to be dealing with is this sway bar end link. So it's going to be requiring a 14 mil. So I'm going to be inserting my 14 mil socket on the back end. As well, on this front part, I'm going to be using a box-ended wrench. I'm going to be slipping it on here. So then from there, I can start to pop it off. And unfortunately for me, it is stripped. So I am going to have to switch out and use an extractor socket right here. So for the extractor socket, I like these ones because they fit on the end of my 3/8. Let me slip it on the back end there. And there she goes. As you can see, I'm using my knee to right now brace the socket on because I was unable to tap it on with a hammer. And from there, we got that one off. From here, you can try and put it out the rest of the way. I recommend just kind of leaving it in there while we deal with the bottom part. For the bottom part of the sway bar link, what you're going to need is a 12 mil actually for the top part and a 14 mil for the underside. So I'm going to grab my 14 mil, slip it onto the bottom. You can see how it's already starting to move. Slip your 12 mil on the top, and from there, and there she goes. And there she goes. There, pop off your 12 mil, pop it out at the top, and pop it out at the bottom. For those who couldn't see, this is the way that it was inside. So we have a metal plate, bushing. This is where the metal sits for the lower control arm, right in between those. Bushing, piece of metal, there's the 12 mil goes on. Coming up to the top part here, 14 mil is right here, that you can see. Then from there it goes directly in with a bushing on the other side there. So from here for the next part, we're going to be getting off the tension arm. I'm going to be using a 17 mil socket to get these two nuts out from underneath. Now, slip that 17 on. From there. There's one. This one's coming off so easy. Grab the socket, stick it on, and you just do it by hand. And there it is. For the next part, what we're going to do is we're going to get the front part of this tension arm off here. I'm going to be taking the box-ended wrench, and normally I'd like to slip this on the bolt side. However, due to the sway bar being there, I'm going to actually have to come with the box-ended on that side, and from there, socket on bolt side. Breaking the torque. And there she is. Can't get it off, all you gotta do, just give it a few taps on the other side, and I can pull that out. For the tension arm here, you can start to try and wiggle it out. If you're having any issues, just give it a few light taps. Pops it down there, and it slips out, and that's where those two 17s were. So now from here, I'm going to be taking down this lower control arm. Now I found this bolt back here is on way too tight. So what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to be taking my 17 mil, I'm going to slip it through this hole right here and get it on there. From there I'm going to be grabbing my extendable and I'm going to be slipping it on right over here. Tight fit, but you can just make it work with a 3/8. From there, I'm going to be torquing this. The wrench is going to brace up here, and now from here I can exert all my force. And there she goes. Takes a little bit of force, but you can get it off. Nuts off, pull it out, and it's out. From here, same thing as before. If you have any issues, pulling it out, get a nice couple love taps. she pops right out. From here, the next part we're going to be getting out from here is going to be the inner tie rod. Now, you need to get this boot back, so in order to do that, there is just a little twist thing right here. You may have something different where you may need to cut it. In this case, I just need to unhook these. Now they're loosened. I can grab and pull them off just like that. Next, I'm going to be taking this boot and I'm going to be pulling it forward. One thing to watch, if you just grab this part right here, you can rip it right around here. So try and do your best to make sure that you wiggle it out close to this front right here so you don't rip. And there we go. Pulling it back as far as you can. For here, the next part that we're gonna need is actually gonna be a flathead screwdriver and either your mini sledge or your rubber mallet. There's a retaining clip right here on the back side. So taking your flathead, you're just gonna hook it on the edge, give it a few taps. Again, one thing I like to do is I actually like to take this, once I got it out a bit, flip it to straighten it out fully. I will be switching these. I do not plan on ever reusing these. If you plan on reusing them, maybe avoid the turning of the screwdriver in order to drive it back, as it does warp it more. From there, you're just gonna rinse and repeat on all the sides. And there's the last one right there. Now, this thing should be free moving. There we are, so now it doesn't interfere at all. From here, the next piece of the puzzle is, I'm gonna grab my adjustable wrench, again it maxes out at 25, in order to slip onto the end of this. And then with it on the end, I'm gonna be using my mini sledge, giving it a few taps just to get it loose. And there we go, just managed to get it loose. Slip this back on, and there we go. This one took quite a bit of force in order to be able to get off. And now it's just a slow process, taking it off this way. When you get near the end, you can then start using your hands. And there you go, now she's off. Last piece just to take off is that little retaining clip right here on the end. And from here, that is the entire breakdown of the whole front suspension on a Nissan 240SX. The last piece of the puzzle that I haven't done is I have not taken this flare nut wrench and I have not slipped it on here for the brake line in order to get that loose. I am going to be showing that when I do my brake video in order to get the line and the caliper off. However, for the whole front suspension here, all the tools that were used, as I said at the start of the video, and as well, here are all the parts that were removed. Now, one key thing to note is I have no loose nuts and I have no loose bolts. And that's because I put everything back on as I went through the video. So make sure, if you don't want to lose anything, put it back on. It's an easy way to keep track. Now, for the next part of this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to take apart the entire rear suspension on the Nissan 240SX.